Baroque period now, which ran roughly from 1600 to 1750. One of the most important composers of the Baroque period, in fact, one of the most important composers of all time, was Johann Sebastian Bach. Bach was born in 1685 and died in 1750. His music has been admired and analysed by pretty much every composer ever since. His structures, his forms, his harmony are in many ways the founding stones of much of the music that's been written since he lived. We're going to hear a movement from his orchestral suite number 2. We're going to hear it performed here in this modern concert hall, though it was actually written to be played in a coffee house, albeit quite a grand one. It was composed in 1738 and is made up of 7 movements, all of them popular French dances of the time. We're going to focus on the final movement, the Badinerie. It's orchestrated for flute, strings and harpsichord. Now in the score it specifies transverse flute, which simply means an instrument that's held out to the side, like the modern flute that we all know. Now though the flute is a solo instrument, there's another instrument on stage that's really worth looking out for, and that's the harpsichord. If you're trying to identify a period of music that something's written in, there are certain features to listen out for, and in Baroque music it's the harpsichord. If you can see a harpsichord on stage, if you can hear a harpsichord in the music, you can 90% guarantee it's from the Baroque. The harpsichord plays the role of the continuo, the bass line. Now if you look at it on paper, it's actually quite a boring part, but you'll notice that there are numbers written below the notes. This is figured bass, an instruction on how to harmonise and improvise over the basic structure that's given, much like a jazz player reads chord charts. Let's hear the harpsichord play exactly what's written on the page. And now here it is, embellishing it using the instructions in the figured bass. This piece is in binary form, so you have an A section and a B section, though Bach repeats each of those, so you get AA, BB. Melodically, it's incredibly simple. The entire movement is based on just 2 short fragments. Here's the first one, played on the flute. And the second. The first is basically an arpeggio, and the second moves in a more stepwise motion, though with some small jumps between notes. Harmonically, Bach begins in B minor, moves to F sharp minor, and then follows that pattern in reverse for section B. He starts in F sharp minor and finishes the movement once again in B minor. Along the way, there are examples of suspensions, inversions, even a Neapolitan sixth, but perhaps most interesting of all are the 2 types of cadence he uses. Musical punctuation that either gives us an obvious finish or a harmonic cliffhanger. Let's hear the perfect cadence first, chord 5 to 1, dominant to tonic. There's no more perfect way of ending a phrase, hence its name. To counter that, here's an imperfect cadence, chord 2 to chord 5. Very much a case of what happens next. The Baroque period takes its name from a style of architecture. It follows similar lines of complexity, beautifully ornate lines with many decorative features. Now you can see here an example of a Baroque cathedral. See if you can hear similar lines of beauty and complexity in this short piece by Bach. Deliana Lazarova conducts members of the Halle, who are joined by soloists from the Royal Northern College of Music. that was the Barneri from Bach's Orchestral Suite No. 2, performed by the Halle Orchestra, conducted by Deliana Lazarova. Now, in a moment, we're going to hear music by Mozart. But before that, let's hear a little bit